Once again, I welcome you all to this very special 159th session of Leadership Talks. As you know that these sessions are being organized by India International Education Council and School Allergy Solutions. India International Education Council is a not-for-profit organization which is working in the field of education. It has collaborators from 12 countries. It aims to create a better world through education. It is also building quality centers for elementary education, approachable for all kids, finding best educational practices across the globe, and find ways to implement those in Indian institutions. It is also creating more awareness on hygiene and learning disabilities. It publishes a magazine called World Education Review and many other educational reports. It aims to build 100 chapters in different cities by 2022. It will soon open its membership for institutions and individuals. It also imparts training for leaders, teachers, students, and parents. So as you all know that so far we have conducted, this is our 159th session, and we have received 19,858 registrations during these sessions. We have also received 18,526 questions on national education policy. We have received participation from 8 countries: India, USA, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Nepal, Kuwait, Russia, and Seychelles. From India, we have received participation from 23 states and 130 cities. We aim to reach out to 100,000 educators, 20,000 institutions, and 1,000 plus eminent speakers, like today's speakers, will be joining us during the entire series of leadership talks. Once again, I welcome you all, and now I would request, please join me in welcoming our key speakers for this very special session. Our first key speaker, a very senior education leader, Surbhi Deshpande ji. Surbhi ji is principal with D.Y. Patil International School, Pune, Maharashtra. Surbhi ji has been an experienced educator with over 21 years of experience with the major engagements as head quality systems and education with a school managed by Tata Steel Advisor. She also has been a school assessor to assess JUSCO schools on the TEEP model at Jamshedpur, because she was with Wipro group of schools as principal for the Belwadi branch in Pune. Ms. Deshpande has been associated with the D.Y. Patil International School since 2018 as principal, managing 2 international CIE and IB and 1 national board, CISCE. She is ambitious, dynamic, and determined to propel the school forward and is an exemplary educator and administrator. With her rich experience, she has already brought about major changes in the school and has aligned and integrated the annual school plan with NEP. We welcome you, Surbhi ma'am. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you. Our next key speaker, another senior education leader, Rachna Dev ji. Rachna ma'am is principal with Kendriya Vidyalaya, Dehradun, Uttarakhand. She has an MA in English and B.Ed. She joined KVS as PGT English in 1993. In 2005, she was awarded the most coveted award of KVS National KVS Incentive Award at New Delhi. She has been a master trainer, a resource person, and a course director for dozens of courses for teachers of different cadres and for different issues, including AIDS awareness, National Adolescent Education Program, to name a few. She has worked as a principal. She has served institutions like Air Force Station Hasimara, Air Force Station Saraswat, Rishikesh, Army Kent Raewala, Air Force Station Pune. As a principal, she has acted as a course director and venue director for Principals Workshop on National Curriculum Framework in 2009. She also visited Germany in 2016 as a member of a team that visited educational institutions of Bremen, Hamburg, and Berlin. Most recently, she was a course director for an induction course for JSS of KVS at KV Powai, Mumbai. She has been a keynote speaker on status of women in India during celebration of International Women's Day at OLF on 8 March 2021. We welcome you, Rachna ma'am. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, ma'am. Our next key speaker, Barinder Jodh Kaur ma'am. Barinder ji is principal with Mount Mitra Z School, Kathua, Jammu and Kashmir. She has done BCom, MCom, and BN. She's a UGC NET qualified for assistant professor. She's also CTET qualified. Apart from that, PTET qualified in January 2016. She served as editor, commerce section of College Magazine. She's also worked as coordinator action plan approval for International School Award under British Council and executed approved action plan as principal. She was also awarded ISA Principal Award. She has successfully coordinated SOF IEO examination and her students won zonal network national medals. She was awarded Certificate of Honor by International Handwriting Olympiad Organization. We welcome you, Barinder ma'am. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you. And our last key speaker for this very special session, a very senior higher education expert and Professor Dr. Kishore Rajaji. Dr. Raja is HOD Electronics Communication Engineering at SRM University. He received his PhD degree from Anna University, Chennai, and completed ME in Communication Systems from Thiagaraja's College of Engineering, Madurai. He has published more than 50 journal papers in peer-reviewed journals and has more than 23 years of experience in teaching and research. He has received a very coveted C.V. Raman Research Award for the contribution of research in the area of wireless communication. He published a very sought-after book called Electromagnetics Engineering 2015. He is a reviewer of the following international journals like International Journal of Network Security, Taiwan Sensor Letters, American Scientific Publisher, Will Journal, USA. Welcome you, Raja, sir. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So with this, we come to the next part of the session, which is the opening remark part. Now I would invite one by one our key speakers, first for their opening remark, and after that I would come back to them for their main talk part. So I would first request Surabhi ma'am, if you can have your quick 1 minute opening remark.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Good morning, everybody. I hope I'm audible to all.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is definitely a good opportunity where we as educationists can interact, can discuss the way forward to making this NEP a great success. So look forward to hearing from the other key speakers today, and it's really a very interactive kind of a mode where we can share our ideas, share our plans, and can take this NEP in a much more futuristic and a more kind of a plan which can be executed well. So look forward to this seminar being great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Surabhi ma'am. We are equally excited with your presence. I would come back to you for your detailed perspective. Now I would request Rachna ma'am, if you can have your opening remark.
Good morning, Mr. Pratap and all esteemed co-panelists. I'm Rachna Dev, Principal of KVOLF Dehradun, and I had read somewhere, a teacher affects eternity. You never know where her influence stops. So my topic today is going to be the role and importance of teachers in general and also within the purview of National Education Policy 20. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachna ma'am, for sharing that, and big thanks for your participation. I would come back to you. Meanwhile, we have been joined by a very senior education leader from Chandigarh, Manjeet Johar ma'am. Welcome, Manjeet ma'am. Thank you for joining. And now I would invite Barinder ma'am, if we can have your opening remark.
Thank you, sir. A very pleasant morning to all the panelists, the principals, and of course all the participants. It's a great privilege and honor for me to speak on this platform and to enlighten all the participants regarding national education policy. And I hope it will be a fruitful session for all of us, and all the queries which many of us have regarding new education policy will be sorted out today. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. We all agree with you, ma'am. And thank you for your participation. I would come back to you. And now I would request Dr. Kishore Raja, sir, if you can have your opening remark.
Yeah. Good morning, honorable present here. So I'm very happy to have eminent principals here in this forum. So today I'm going to share about the importance of coding in national education policy. So we will discuss more on that, and I'm also talk about what is the coding and what is the programming. So both are different. So I'm going to talk about on that. So we will see in my session. Thank you once again. Thank you for inviting me in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you for your participation, Raja sir. I would come back to you for that very important topic. And big thanks once again to all the speakers for sharing your opinion. With this, we come to the next part of the session, which is the main part. Before I invite the first speaker for today's perspective, I would like to share the learnings which we have during the last 158 sessions. During the last 158 sessions, almost all the participants shared that this is a wonderful document. And this document has a potential to place India at that coveted position of Vishwa Gyan Guru. At the same time, same number of participants shared that this is a very ambitious document and going to be very, very challenging in terms of execution. Many believe that finance is going to be a key concern. Many educators shared that teachers training is going to be a big concern area. Many educators said, yes, teachers training is going to be a concern area, but the bigger concern area would be lack of motivation and intent among teachers to get trained. Many senior educators who participated shared that, good schools in urban areas are already implementing many of the ideas mentioned in NEP. The biggest challenge would be for rural school, budget school, and government school. Many people, many experts believe that this pandemic has exposed the poor distribution of digital infrastructure in our country. And that is going to be another big challenge. So I would request all our key speakers today that while sharing your perspective, if you can also suggest, some best practices which you have been implementing in your school or some ideas so that we all can learn from each other and this session becomes more useful and engaging for all of us. I would also request you all that please keep the time limit in mind, that time limit 10 minutes per speaker so that we have sufficient time in the end for the questions. So with this, I would request our first key speaker, Surbhi Deshpande ma'am. Surbhi ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. I will just start with sharing of the screen. Yeah, now we all know that 2020 has been a year which has been characterized by a lot of uncertainty. Years down the line, we shall remember Are you all able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you.
Your screen is also visible.
Yeah, the presentation, basically I'm sharing the presentation. Is it visible that?
Yeah, that was visible, but you have just stopped sharing your screen, I believe. Yeah.
I hope it's visible now. Yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I will start again. Now, year 2020, obviously we all have seen that the year has been characterized by uncertainty. Years down the line, we shall remember how this world changed this year and life came to a standstill. We all are witnessing it today. In Mumbai and Pune, the things are still worse. But one of the changes which was not anticipated, but rather necessary, came about in the form of National Education Policy 2020 in India and happens to be one of the major positive breakthroughs of this otherwise dreadful start of this decade. This is a landmark change by the Indian government as they have replaced the 34-year-old National Policy on Education, which was framed in 1986. Now, this NEP 2020 has got various different pointers, around more than 40 pointers, and it's really difficult, to cover up all those 40 points in this short span of 8 to 10 minutes. So I will be highlighting just on the three key highlights which I felt that are quite important. And the key highlights of the NEP that I would be discussing will be the new and the curricular structure of the school education, bagless days and informal internship, and coding for children from grade 6. So let's try to look through what are the important areas from all this. Now, going to the next slide, we can find this is the wonderful change that the government has made, where schooling definitely begins from the age of 3 years. So the formula that they're going to use is 5 + 3 + 3 + 4. Now that mentions the foundational stage, which is 3 to 8 years. So the child will be enrolled to the school at the age of 3, and from 3 to 8 years, a span of 5 years, which will include the pre-primary grade 1 and grade 2. Next is the preparatory stage, which we have students from grade 3, 4, and 5. And again, it is a span of 3 years. Children from age 8 to 11 years will be in this stage. Next is the middle stage, where we have students from grade 6, 7, and 8, basically the middle school stage, children in the age group of 11 to 14 years. And last is the 4-year span, where we have students ranging in grade 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I think the major breakthrough is this change in the pattern of education. The restructuring of the 10+2 school curriculum, I think, is one of the major highlights of this comprehensive policy. And I think it will make the education system more viable. Now here, one important thing is the board exams that need to undergo a change. The board exams across states to test knowledge application and not the rote learning. So basically what we stress upon grade 10 and 12, that is, it's more of a rote learning. So here it won't be, the emphasis will be lesser here. For each subject to test objective and descriptive exams. Now there is a wonderful body which has been established, the PARAK, which is National Assessment Center for Performance Assessment, Review and Analysis of Knowledge for Holistic Development. And that will be set up as a standard setting body. Board exams for grade 10 and 12 will be redesigned with holistic development as the aim, and the changes in the board structure, which seeks to make the exams a test of core competencies, will be implemented. So just now what we stress upon grade 10 and 12, the emphasis will be, not just 10 and 12, but it will come down starting from grade 3. Now that's again a very wonderful kind of an implementation which all schools will have to take up. All students will have to take the school examinations in grade 3, 5, and 8, and which will be conducted by appropriate authorities. So these will be school exams, but definitely there will be a kind of a strict monitoring and governance from an authority. Now, when we're talking about assessments, report cards, and how we measure the students also becomes a very important criteria. So the report cards measuring the students against all the parameters that have been set becomes quite important. So life skills have to be taught every year. Report cards, I think, will have to be reviewed from teachers, peers, and students as well. And a review assessment of performance has to take place. Now, artificial intelligence-based assessments will be given to each student, I think, every year. Schools will not have any rigid formation of streams of art, commerce, science, and students can take up whichever courses they want. So I think, just in a nutshell, this is what regarding the curricular changes that have to be brought into the school education. Now, going to the next, we will try to look into bagless days and informal internship. Now, this basically enhances upon hands-on experience. So rather than having rote learning or kind of theoretical knowledge or bookish knowledge, children will be more exposed to kind of experiences and learning by doing. So this is again something which is very important, which the government plans to implement from grade 6 upwards. So the students will participate in a 10-day bagless period. During this period, students from grade 6 to 8 will intern with local vocational experts, such as carpenters, gardeners, potters, artists, all our kind of community helpers. I think this was another move that was hugely appreciated, as necessary professionals that are looked down upon by society will finally be viewed with newer outlook in the coming generations. This move, I think, will also enable children to pick up at least one skill during this period of learning. So that's really very nice. Now, this new NEP proposes exposing at least 50% learners to vocational education, which has been looked down or which is not taken into consideration. So 50% of our learners will take up this vocational education. So according to the proposed policy, the National Council of Educational Research and Training, that is the NCERT, will frame a practice-based curriculum for grades 6 to 8. The policy says that students would be exposed to vocational subjects as early as grade 6, and which is really a kind of a good achievement by the policymakers. Talking about the vocational training, the NEP 2002 states that every student will take a fun course during grade 6 to 8 that gives a survey and hands-on experience of sampling of important vocational crafts, such as carpentry, electric work, metal work, gardening, pottery making, etc., as decided by the states and the local communities and as mapped by local skilling needs. So all these community helpers will be definitely taken into consideration. People can, wholeheartedly participate into this program. Children will have, learning with fun. The policy states that all students of class 6 to 8 will participate in a 10-day bagless period sometime. During this period, the students will intern with local vocational experts, such as carpenters, gardeners, potters, artists, etc. NEP is also suggesting that similar internship opportunities to learn vocational subjects throughout grade 6 to 12, including holiday periods. I think that was something very interesting. And the NEP will set up meetings with local artists and craftsmen, visit higher educational institutes in their respective villages, states, and school students will also be exposed to outside activities periodically through visits to places of historical, cultural, and tourist importance, including monuments and museums. So I think that's something which children are definitely going to enjoy. So the field trips that we organize, which will be more meaningful in nature, will be more structured and can be measured for parameters of learning. Moving ahead, we will go to what is just a brief of coding. Now, this is again something which children definitely like. Everywhere we can find children are glued to the televisions or to the mobiles and they want to learn something new. They're quite techno-savvy these days. So coding something is going to be introduced from grade 6. Students will be allowed to take up coding from class 6. And this move will put students at par with other countries where similar policies with regard to coding have already been implemented in their education system. So if take the example of Japan and China, they have already included coding in their curriculum right from a very early age. Now, I think that's the need of the time. And language is a mode of communication that has been passed on generation to generation. But I think with robotics and artificial intelligence coming up, coding, I think, should be the new language which will be spoken. Now, exposing students at this K-12 level to advanced technology is a way of preparing them to adapt to the future. Coding, I think, helps inculcate a habit of curiosity. It pushes students to question, observe, analyze, and record everything around them, thus breaking the old pattern of classroom education, which is a restrictive one-way exchange of learning. Coding helps to blossom every single unit of the child's brain, whether being logical thinking or through art integration, mechanics, or analytical thinking. It enables children to enter the world of new age technology by giving them an arena to develop apps and games or work in the field of robotics and artificial intelligence. I think that's something which we will have to really make it more interesting. We'll have to train the teachers, we'll have to outsource resources for all of this. So I think we definitely have a prime minister who is firing all cylinders in one go, is not willing to wait and go in a staggered manner to transform India in bits and bytes. He wants all sections and sectors to move ahead and benefit simultaneously, which is definitely a daunting task. It is my firm belief that education and health are the causes of the economic development and not just the outcome. And so we definitely as educators must invest in these sectors. The recommendations with regards to using technology like blockchain for checking fake degrees, leveraging virtual reality, artificial intelligence and gaming for education, and setting up a dedicated national education technology forum is definitely very timely. And if implemented well, I'm very sure the NEP 2020 could be the last policy written by humans. And I'm sure with all this, the next one will be drafted by AI. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Surbhi ma'am, for sharing these valuable points. You began by sharing the key highlights of NEP, and these highlights certainly would have huge impact. We also talked about the modern age assessment and the kind of assessment this NEP is proposing. And then you also talked about the proposal in NEP to expose 50% learners to vocational education would create huge impact. And then, we talked about the importance of these newest technology, be it coding, artificial intelligence, and how these would help students to adapt to the future. And then you also call upon all the educators that we need to outsource resources. We need to have a collaborative approach. And then, we really appreciate your assessment that this could be the last policy written by human beings. And absolutely a big thanks, Surbhi ma'am, for participating and sharing these valuable thoughts. I would come back to the questions. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
And now I would request Rachna ma'am, ma'am, if we can have your ideas in detail. Rachna ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Pratap, and thank you, Surbhi ma'am. In fact, I was in Pune till July 20, and I heard a lot about this school, and very valuable and very beautiful presentation was made by Surbhi ma'am, and where her discourse ended, my begins, because she talked about restructuring of this new pattern, 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, and a lot of changes that have been brought about for the children. So we all know that the world is, it's running at breakneck speed, and a lot of changes, tremendous changes have been coming in all areas, especially in educational area. And there is actually a paradigm shift in the nature and scope of learning, in pedagogy, and most importantly, in the role of stakeholders, from students and parents to teachers and school administration. As far as students are concerned, they are well informed, smarter children. They know a lot, they want to know a lot, and they have the courage to assert their individuality. As far as parents are concerned, parents are ambitious, they're becoming more demanding, and they want to be apprised of every development that is taking place. So we can understand how much the role has changed with respect to teachers. And what exactly is causing this shift is that in one place there are innumerable technological advances and rise in management of big data. And as Surbhi ma'am said, robotics is there now, coding is there, virtual learning, artificial intelligence, in conjunction with all multidisciplinary traditional subjects that are across sciences, social sciences, humanities, languages. So these are there, and in addition to them, all these have been added, artificial intelligence and all. Second challenge which the teachers face, and which has been causing a lot of changes in the educational area, is the climate change and increasing pollution, depletion of all the resources, and most importantly and most recent, the emergence of epidemics and pandemics, which have brought havoc in our lives, disease management, and resultant social issues. Now, what are the social issues that teachers are going to face? Unemployment of parents. Even in a school like KV, where the fee structure is very small, we find parents unable to pay fee. And as the time is, as the death rate is increasing and all these things are happening, you can find many children with single parents. So things are definitely going to become extremely, extremely challenging. So a teacher has to be fully equipped with life skills also to cope all these challenges. How to face, how to tackle these children who are coming from, very different and very difficult circumstances. And another thing which needs our attention is the pedagogy, which is changing rapidly. Throughout it is changing, it is becoming more experiential, holistic, integrated, and it's becoming very flexible and learner-friendly. So you can just compare the role of teachers that we had in the past and what is expected from the teacher now. The teacher is now at the center of all fundamental reforms that are taking place in education system. And if I am allowed to quote from NEP itself, it says the new education policy must help re-establish teachers at all levels as the most respected and essential members of society, because they truly shape our next generation of citizens. Now the question arises, is the present scenario in terms of quality of teacher education, recruitment, their deployment, service conditions, and empowerment is up to the mark. And many of us will say we are far beyond this. A lot of it is to be done, and I cannot call these things very satisfactory. So NEP has paid a lot of attention on how to empower teachers, how to impart them practical and quality education, and then how to recruit and hire the teachers in the right perspective. So spearheading, they have started from early ECCE itself. And from Anganwadis itself, NEP is focusing. There are two cadres of workers in Anganwadi. One are those who are 10+2 or above qualifications, and another cadre is which is below that. So the first thing that the government is going to do, the education ministry is going to do, is to start courses for them. The first cadre, which is 10+2 educated, for them there is going to be a 6 months certificate training program, and for the second cadre, which is below 10+2, for them there is going to be 1 year diploma course, and the content will be early literacy, numeracy, and the mode is going to be distance learning, digital learning through smartphones or DTH networks. This is being done to ensure that their normal routine activities are not hampered if they are sent for training. And then mentoring will be by cluster resource centers of school education department. And in order to assess them, at least 1 monthly contract class for continuous assessment will be. I'm sorry, my connection was lost for a while. Am I audible now? Okay, sir. So the aim is that by 2025, we should achieve the target of universal literacy and numeracy in primary schools. And rest of NEP will become relevant only if our students they master this basic learning requirement, which is missing in most of the schools, especially in government schools, and which is reading, writing, and arithmetic. At least this much it should be achieved. Now, another thing is, when we talk about recruiting our teachers, TET and BEd, these are two, examination or two courses that we talk about. So as far as TET is concerned, they're going to strengthen it, and they're going to extend it to cover teachers all across the 4 stages that Surabhi ma'am was also talking about. And the marks scored in specific subjects will be taken in account, while recruiting them. And then for BEd, they are bringing something, a very, very practical approach. They're going to make it a 4-year integrated course. And the students, the aspiring participants from rural areas, which means that the local teacher will be teaching in a local school to the local students. Now, how this is going to help? The local students, they are going to be benefited by this local teacher, and he will also serve as a role model. If you want to do something in life, this is how you can achieve. And in addition, the government is going to give a lot of incentives, which include housing for them or higher housing allowances, in addition to a lot more things. Then when we go for recruiting teachers, so the first thing the states are going to do is they are going to forecast, going first are required in every state every year. So that will be a digital platform, and they will be in a better position to assess the number of teachers that are required. So based on that number, training programs and all these things can go on. Then, to gauge their passion for teaching, their motivation for teaching, interviews and demo, which happen in many of the schools, many of the organizations, but they're going to become an integral part. Demonstration, class demonstration plus interviews. And what is more important is the condition of the teachers as of now, as today. Excessive transfers take place in government areas, so they're going to curb this tendency. Transfers will be held only when they become absolutely necessary. And second most unpleasant and undesirable work, is the teachers are deputed on non-teaching activities. They go for census duty, they go for midday meal, and they go for election duty. So many duties, but and that hampers their interaction with the students and academics. So they are going to relax these norms. There will be no more engagement in non-teaching activities, and midday meal scheme, as far as it is concerned, the involvement of teachers is also going to be assessed, and probably the burden is going to be reduced. Another thing is there will be continuous opportunities for self-improvement, innovation and advancements. One very good thing the government is thinking of bringing in is building of school complexes, where teachers from different schools can stay together and then they can interact, and this is going to, this interaction is going to help all sides. More involvement in the governance of school. This is also, being encouraged. So teachers are to be a part of VMCs, Vidyalaya Management Committees, SMCs, School Management Committees. One thing NEP says is that there will be more autonomy in choosing aspect of pedagogy as per requirement, because a teacher knows which pedagogy is best for his students. How they're going to implement this, we have to see, but this is one of the key reforms that they are thinking about. And in recognition, promotion and salary hike for outstanding teachers, which is something very, very important. Vertical mobility based on merit and proven leadership and management skills. This is also there, which means that the teachers who have leadership qualities and who demonstrate this in their day-to-day activities, they will be given a chance to go for higher courses, to go on higher course in their own schools, in their own academic arenas, or in allied institutions. So for achieving all these aims, the government is making a comprehensive national curriculum framework for teacher education, and this will be made by, this will be called NCFTE, and this is going to be made in 2021 itself, and it will be formulated by NCERT based on the principles of national education policy. So these are the key things that the government is thinking about doing for teachers. They have realized that there is a paradigm shift in all arenas, and we need to equip the teachers in a better way, in a new way. So we need to restructure the B.Ed curriculum. We need to review the TETs and then service conditions of the teachers. Especially, they should have neat and clean environment, drinking facilities, better toilets, libraries, access to computer, internet. All these infrastructural facilities are going to be provided to them, plus scope for innovation and experimentation, and for their professional growth. Government is thinking even salary hikes. So this is all that the government is going to do. And as ma'am was also saying, we are very hopeful if this is taken in right earnest, and if all concerted efforts are made, then there is no question of looking back, and this is going to prove a milestone in our education system. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Rachna ma'am, for sharing these important points. You primarily talked about the importance of empowering teachers. You began highlighting why we need to equip teachers with life skills to handle, those students who are coming from disadvantaged groups. You shared a lot of those things. You also talked about why training and empowering our teachers is a key. Not just to successfully implement this policy. In fact, just to achieve that desired holistic education ecosystem. You also talked about where government is proposing through this NEP the more engagement and interaction between teachers from different schools, and that how this is going to create an impact. You also talked about a lot of those challenges which are being faced by teachers, be it involvement in non-academic activities or some kind of those things. Those decrease efficiency of teachers. And in the end, you called upon all the educators that we need to have those collaborative and concerted effort to execute this policy successfully. So big thanks, Rachna ma'am, for participating and sharing. I would come back to you with questions. Thank you, ma'am. And now I would request... Thank you, ma'am. I would request now Barinder ma'am, if you can have your thoughts and ideas.
Thank you, sir. As we all know, the previous National Educational Policy was established in 1986. So last year itself, a change came up in this, and new education policy was introduced in 2020, which will be implemented in 2022 to 2023. First and the foremost drastic change that was announced was in the pedagogical and curricular structure. From 10+2 system, now it is restructured to 5+3+3+4, covering the ages from 3 to 18 years, which has already been discussed in detail with my co-panelists, ECCE, and certainly there are a few prerequisites for learning are discussed, in which government has insisted a lot upon literacy and numeracy skills. For that, they are imparting teachers trainings as well. States are required to here reconsider to foster peer tutoring and voluntary activities also to enhance the literacy and numeracy skills. And it is, of course, insisting a lot of importance on public and school libraries, which have to be significantly expanded, and even encouragement is being given to digital libraries. As we know, this year again, online sources will be the major source for all the schools and students and teachers, and so that the learning activities can be executed in a hinderless manner. And the major other concern in this policy is to curtail dropout rates, which has actually happened in most of the schools. And if we talk about the population, the studying population in the country, many dropouts were there last year. So in this policy, much is insisted upon the children of migrant laborers and other children who have dropped out to bring them back into the education umbrella. So it is achieving universal participation in school by carefully tracking students as well as their learning levels. Counselors and well-trained social workers connected to schools and school complexes are the other way out regarding this. So scope of school education will be broadened to facilitate multiple pathways to learn involving for this, NIOS and state open schools will also offer A, B, and C levels that are equivalent to grade 3, 5, and 8 of formal school system, secondary education programs that are equivalent to grades 10 and 12, vocational education courses or programs, and adult literacy and life enrichment programs will be there. States will encourage to develop these in regional languages by establishing new or strengthening the existing state languages through SIOS, which are state open school systems. Apart from that, it is again insisting on holistic development of learners, overall thrust of curriculum and pedagogy reform to move towards real understanding and learning how to learn, rather be away from rote learning. Aim of education will not only be cognitive development, but also building character, creating holistic and well-rounded development, and to equip the students with 21st century skills. Specific set of skills, values across domains will be identified for integration and incorporation at each stage of learning, from preschool to higher education. So, of course, carrying on with the same move, which last year we all have experienced, that there was a reduction in curriculum. Curriculum content will be reduced in each subject to its core essentials and make space for critical thinking, more holistic, inquiry-based, discovery-based, discussion-based, and analysis-based learning, as they are insisting more on vocational courses also. The mandated content will focus on key concepts, areas, applications, and problem solving. Teaching and learning will be conducted in more interactive manner rather than one-way communication. So of course, it is a time to move to two-way communication in every sphere. They are again insisting more upon experiential learning. In all stages, experiential learning will be adopted. Will include hands-on training, learning, art integrated and sports integrated education, storytelling-based pedagogy, among others, as standard pedagogies. Classroom transactions will shift towards competency-based learning and education. So there will be no hard separation between the secondary school with the earlier classes. Students will be given increased flexibility and choice of subjects, as they have a very wide choice now. Even the students of science streams are opting for psychology as additional subject these days. So this gap is going to be bridged rather in a better manner in coming time. There will be no hard separation between curricular, extracurricular, or co-curricular among arts, humanities, and sciences, or between vocational and academic streams. Much power of language is going to take place now. As we know, till primary classes, the more of interaction will be in regional languages. So again, we are going to be in touch with our tradition, our mother tongue. And it will definitely be given more importance, and an era will come when again a respect for one's mother tongue is going to take place in coming future. This will be followed by both public and private schools. High quality textbooks, including in science, will be made available in home language and mother tongue by NCERT and by other state authorities. States may enter into bilateral agreement to hire teachers from each other. So of course, an agreement-based or contractual-based hiring will be done between the states. The three languages learned by children will be of their choice, of states, regions, of the students, so long as at least two of the three languages are native to India. So at present, as you know, we all have Hindi, and of course, English is being made compulsory, but the third language will be their regional language. That will be their state language. Even Indian Sign Language will be standardized across the country, and national and state curriculum material developed for use by students with hearing impairment. So that is again a big move to help up the disabled students. Curricular integration of essential subjects, skills, and capacities. So we are back with the capabilities, with actually the doing stuff. Certain subjects, skills, and capacities will be emphasized in schools, such as scientific temperament and evidence-based thinking, creativity, innovativeness, sense of aesthetics, and art, oral or written communication, health and nutrition, physical education, fitness, wellness, and sports, collaboration and teamwork, problem solving and logical reasoning, vocational exposure and skills, digital literacy, and computational thinking, ethical and moral reasoning, etc., will be given much importance. Introduction of contemporary subjects such as artificial intelligence, design thinking, holistic health, organic living, environmental education, global citizenship education at relevant stages will be introduced. So a better peaceful and harmonious world will be there in the future. Mathematics and computational thinking to be given increased emphasis throughout school years. Activities involving coding to be introduced in middle stages, and ma'am has already elaborated a lot on this. Bagless days will be encouraged throughout the year for various types of enrichment activities, so that no more rote learning or no more just lecturing will be there. Actually, those will be the doing days for the students. Learning by doing will take place during those days. And those days will involve a lot many art activities, quizzes, sports, vocational crafts, etc. National Curriculum Framework for School Education. The formulation of new comprehensive National Curriculum Framework for School Education 2021 will be undertaken by NCERT. The document shall henceforth be revisited and updated once in every 5 to 10 years, taking into account frontline curriculum. So of course, the upcoming changes, and it will be adapted according to the situation every time. So many changes I have discussed. I hope it was a fruitful time. Of course, I'll be available in the interaction for question answer session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Barinder ji, for sharing these very important, thoughts from NEP. You talked about the importance of regional languages and how the proposed clause in NEP would create impact. You also talked about this NEP has that potential to achieve that much talked about holistic education for all learners. You also talked about the importance of where NEP is giving no hard separation between academic and non-academic activities, curricular, non-curricular, co-curricular activities. You also talked about and elaborated that three-language formula and how it would further empower our learners and our education system. It would strengthen. You also talked about the importance of 21st century skills, and how this NEP is talking about it and how it would empower our learners. It would create global citizens. So big thanks, Barinder ma'am, for sharing these important thoughts. I would come back to you with questions. Thank you. And now with this, I would invite the last key speaker for this very special session, Dr. Kishore Raja. Dr. Raja, over to you. Sir, you are on mute.
So good afternoon, everyone present here. I think today I am going to talk about why the coding is more important for school students. So that is one of the predominant reforms in the national education policy. Now I share some PowerPoint presentation. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible.
Yeah. So I think in my first slide, I put one image. So that will be the future electronic device. So this is a nano electronic medicine. Okay, it's a capsule. Okay, within that all the sensors are inside there. So that will, when you eat this capsule, it will track entire the human cells in our body, human body. So this is going to be future. So that's why I put in this forum. Before going to the importance of the coding. So why they introduced the national education policy has introduced the coding. So because introducing the coding and increasing the exposure to the technology at the young age will go a long way in helping the youth lead the way to new world of innovation and creativity. So I think when you look at down the 25 years. So the people must start what is the innovation, what is the creativity. So then only they can lead our nation. So by debarring the old teaching systems. So as you look at the language, the language is nothing but the mode of communication that has been passed from generation to generation. In the modern world, if you look at the electronics, robotics, and artificial intelligence, the coding may be a new language spoken. So in the national education policy, one of the predominant reforms announced in the national education policy is introduction of coding to the students from the class 6 onwards. So it's the greatest reforms, because when you look at all the devices which we are connecting, I think yes, definitely. In all individual, now we have around 2 devices So probably within 10 years, we may have more devices. Even the mobile phone may be absolute. We may have a new device. So the technology is keep on changing. The students should adopt the latest technology. So one of the thing is the coding, because the coding is the remain constant for the every devices. If you learn it, definitely the students can create new technology, new innovations. So when you look at the every individual is finding the way to stay forth as an educational reform like this will help the students to stand at the forefront and take on the new world lies ahead them. So exposing the students at the kinder level or the class 6 to the advanced technology is a way of preparing them to adapt to the future. So the coding helps inculcate a habit of curiosity. It pushes the students to the question, observe, analyze, record everything around them. Thus, the old pattern of classroom education will be restrictive and one-way exchange of learning. The secret success for a student lies in the making the best use of capability and the capacity to think. The student think the mind of the teacher and follows the thought process. The coding helps to blossom every single unit of a child brain, whether being a logical thinking or through the art integration, mechanics and analytical thing. So it enables the children to enter the world of new age of technology by giving them an arena to develop the games, applications, or work in the field of electronics, robotics, and artificial intelligence. So this is what when a student starts coding, his brain activity improves a lot. Improves a lot. Now we are going to see the difference between the coding and the programming, but actually the both are different. First of all, we see what is the coding. The coding simply means writing the codes, where the coder is the individual who codes from one language to another. The coding is also a programming, but it used to implement the single steps of computer programming. The term programming used in the broader sense, unlike the coding, which basically involves writing the codes in the various language as instructed. The computer does not listen any language, so it listens only zeros and ones, and it listens the voltage. The way of the conversion of zeros into the a language, that is what the coding. So the computer understands only the machine code and translate it into the English language. So that's what the coding. Okay. Whereas the programming is nothing but it's totally depends on the application. Okay. So the programming is common term used to describe the process of feeding machine with a set of instructions to perform. So simply you can say the program is nothing but a set of instruction. The coding is the conversion of one language to another language. So this is what I want to tell you, what is the difference between the programming and the coding. And even if you look at the differentiation of coders and the programmers, the coder is someone who translates the logics into the language machine will understand. The coding is more language oriented, whereas the programming is totally different. Now we will see what is the main difference between the coding and programming. The coding means creating codes from one language to another, whereas the programming means machine to use the set of instructions. The coding is a primary method to facilitate the communication between the human and the machines, whereas the programming is the formal act of writing the code but on the much higher level. It is a part of the computer programming, whereas the coding is a part of the computer programming procedure, which involves translating the requirement into the machine-readable language. Whereas the programming is the big picture, where it involves everything from the compiling and debugging to testing and implementation. The coder is just a translator, whereas the job of the programmer is conceptualize, analyze the solution of the problems before they occur. So this is what the difference between the comparison or difference between the coding and the programming. So when you look at this, this is one of the processor or microcontroller there. So even this hardware part also requires some language. So then only you can operate. So that's why I am telling that the coding is very, very important. The government took a right way, because now the school students are start learning more on programs and more on coding. So this national education policy helps the students to create more innovation and creativity in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Kishore sir, for sharing these valuable points about coding and how this is going to be very useful, and the kind of emphasis it has received in national education policy. So big thanks, Dr. Kishore. With this, we come to the last part of the session, which is the question part. I would also, request all other participants, if you have any question, you can share those questions in the chat box. We have already received many questions during the registration, so I'm just going to present these questions to all our key speakers. But before I start presenting these questions, I'll just take a minute. I would share my screen for a minute. I would, formally discuss the kind of activities we are doing at School Lalaji Solutions. So I'll just share my screen for a minute here. And after that, we'll come to the question answer part straight away. Some of you are already aware with School Lalaji Solutions, we are India's largest one-stop solution platform for educational institutions. So we are present in more than 42 cities, working with somewhere around 4,500 institutions. We help educational institutions in 3 ways. We help them in buying right things from right people at right place. We also help institutions in selling their old stuff, like their old buses, furniture, generators to other institutions who may need that. We also help institutions in raising money, that may be in terms of fee financing, loans. Why any institution would need a platform like School Lalaji to procure, to find suppliers for its various requirements? There are 2 important reasons. So one is the first reason is the discount, because we give them bulk orders, so we have more power to negotiate with them, so we get you a better deal. Second important reason is the bandwidth. In our education ecosystem, we have more than 10,000 educational suppliers. There are hundreds of players for one particular category. But it's very, very difficult for school leaders to reach out to those people, to find right people, find right supplier for your institution. Sometimes your team also lack that bandwidth. Sometimes they also lack the capability in talking to different people, different category-wise companies, to negotiate with them. Here we come into picture. We understand your school, your taste, your actual requirement. We also have category experts who keep on talking to those different companies, suppliers. We also talk to their previous client to certify their credibility. We also negotiate with them, and after doing all these things, we recommend you the right set of options. These are some areas where we are helping educational institutions: smart classroom procurement, uniform, insurance, diesel, solar plant, language lab, security solutions, furniture, recruitment, music classrooms, healthcare, robotics, STEM, STEAM labs, career counseling, stationery, digital marketing, IT solutions, educational tour, generators, learning tools, and finance. And we take the guarantee that will save you at least 5 to 7% of your annual expenditure. So that's kind of a 5% additional revenue generation for your institution. Just one example, we saved 2 crore 40 lakh rupees for different institutions in one category only. That's bus insurance. We are perhaps India's largest school bus insurance partner. For major highlights, we did 8 megawatt plus solar installation, 3,000 plus bus insurance, 400 plus smart classroom, 2,000 plus cameras, 350 plus training programs, 56 old buses, and uniform in 42 schools. By the end of 2021, we aim to reach out to 10,000 institutions. We need your support, your guidance, your blessings. So with this, I'll end my short presentation here. And now I would request Surbhi ma'am, if I may present the first question to you. Yeah, Surbhi ma'am, yeah. Now, I'm also posting the question in the chat box. Ms. Archana Gupta, she's an academic coordinator with Ashoka Universal School, Nashik, has asked this question: how do we create a sense of responsibility and satisfaction in students and parents? So I would say, ma'am, it's a million dollar question. A lot of people are asking this question: how they can create that sense of satisfaction and responsibility among parents and students?
The parents definitely and the students are a major they're the major stakeholders in a school. So the first and most important is, your children should be happy. So they should go back home feeling very happy and satisfied being in the school. Now that will happen only when we provide such an environment in the school, which is very happening, which is friendly, which is kind of learning by doing. And I think there are different mechanisms of listening. So every school needs to, implement the listening mechanisms, the survey mechanisms, the parent feedbacks. Maybe even if you're conducting small activities, you should be taking feedbacks into account and analyzing the feedbacks and making necessary improvements. So I think that will keep your parents and students happy. Second most important thing is what the NEP also strongly suggests is the parent engagement activities. So various activities could be planned for the parents, taking the students into account. And I think that will also there should be transparent kind of interactions between the school management and the parents. There should be timely communication to the parents. I think when these all things are met with, there is I think the parents should not feel that they are left out, and they will definitely continue to have that trust in the school.
Absolutely. Thank you, Surbhi ma'am. I would come back to you. Now I would request Rachna ma'am, if I may present the next question to you. Ms. Pushpa Tiwari, she's a teacher with Elcon International School, Delhi. She wants to know about assessment of 360-degree holistic report card. If you can explain that before today.
Assessment of?
That 360-degree holistic report card assessment system which is being talked about in NEP.
Yes. Yeah. So this assessment card, will be prepared by the CBSE, and it will be intimated to the schools in due course of time, and it is going to include all aspects of that holistic, all aspects of learning, ranging from co-curricular activities to academics, and one common format is going to be devised and it is going to be shared among all the schools. So the schools need not worry, it will come, and then we can, start implementing this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachna ma'am. I would come back to you. Now I would request Barinder ma'am, ma'am, if I may present the next question to you.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
This has been asked by Ms. Prabha Rawat. She's a teacher with Elcon International School, Delhi. How important is to reduce the content to follow the NEP?
See, from the viewpoint, because they do not just want the rote learning to take place, it's better to have the important concept, and rather than just focusing on writing and reading, we can impart some type of learning in which they will rather do experiential learning. The topics can be reduced, but the time which is saved can be spent upon the experiments, or by field trips and by other related activities. We certainly have with these subjects certain related activities by which the subject or the topic can be learned in a better manner. So this is the main thrust of it. But my suggestion as a principal, if the topics are there in the book, we should teach every topic, but the topics which are deleted can be just in a summarized manner or just in a brief manner, so that the student is not blank on those topics. At least they have the basic essential requirement, which will certainly help them in further years. That is going to be serve as their base, right? So more of the time to be devoted to the topics which are retained in the syllabus. Still, in a brief manner, we can educate them with the deleted part also. That is always good to impart education. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you, Barinder ma'am. I would come back to you. Now, I would request Surbhi ma'am once again. Surbhi ma'am, if I may present the next question to you. Ms. Rinku Yadav, she's a PGT English with the Suditi Global Academy, Manipuri, Uttar Pradesh. What would be the greatest outcome of NEP 2020? So I would request you, ma'am, if you can highlight 2 important outcomes of NEP. Let's say 10 years from now, 15 years from now, what would be the 2 biggest takeaways from NEP?
Yeah, the 2 biggest, I think, is, India, what the Prime Minister suggests, that Atmanirbhar Bharat. So, India will be definitely a superpower if we do not allow the brain drain to happen, one. Now, this brain drain will not happen if we engage the young generation very fruitfully, effectively, and giving them the necessary monetary emoluments. So I think that is the biggest kind of, if implemented well. Now, the policy has been drafted very well. It will be successful if implemented well, and I'm sure India will come out to be more successful in terms of becoming an economic superpower in the world, as along with China and America. That is one. And secondly, Indian kind of people are known for their brains. And the coding, which is so important, as I mentioned earlier also, that artificial intelligence will be implemented far and wide. Today, we all are seeing the benefits and reaping the benefits of technology in this pandemic. So I think it will go on increasing. The leverage of technology will be more, and India will definitely become much more self-sufficient. Children will prefer to work in India rather than outside destinations. I think that's what I can see down the line in next 10 to 15 years.
Absolutely. Thank you also, ma'am. I would come back to you for the concluding remark. Now, I would request Rachna ma'am. Ma'am, next question has come from Mr. Ritu Kushwaha. Ritu ji is a teacher with Vidya Global Academy, Noida. The question says how we can make classrooms more innovative with NEP 2020. So that's again a national question. Our nation wants to know the answer of this question, Rachna ma'am.
Yeah, this is a very interesting question and a very relevant one. If you look into NEP, and as ma'am was saying, if we can implement it in the right perspective, then classes are definitely going to become more innovative, for the reason that we are not focusing on academics alone. And academics, the shift is also being shifted. We are going to focus more on learning by doing. And then there are so many activities, the languages that the children are going to learn, regional languages they are going to learn, the coding they are going to do, robotics they are going to do. There is such a vast arena that children are going to be engaged in, that automatically these classes are going to become highly motivational, because there will be scope for every child to do what he wants to do. And even teachers will be given an opportunity to select the pedagogy of their own requirement. So, like we used to have those watertight compartments, 40 minutes for one period, and once the bell rings, the focus will be shifted from mathematics to science, and then from science to social science. So these barriers are going to disappear now, and because children will be, exposed to a lot of activities, and also according to their taste. So classes are going to become very vibrant. They are going to become very lively, and I can see that children would not like to miss the classes once you got the interest that they have. So I hope Ritu ma'am got her answer. This is actually in the basic spirit of NEP, that classes are going to become highly motivational. They're going to become very interesting and very, very holistic, very innovative. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rachna ma'am. And now I would request Barinder ma'am, and this would be the last question for the day. Barinder ma'am, the question has come from Mr. Rakesh Somani. Rakesh ji is principal and professor with D.Y. Patil University School of Pharmacy, Navi Mumbai. What is the impact of this national education policy on healthcare education? Ma'am, you are on mute.
In the main requisites of learning, there is one point where the policy insists on nutrition and health, including mental health even, because we are not supposed to make the education stressful for them. It is not supposed to be cramming. It has to be rather fun-based, activity-based learning of children, and with addressed through healthy meals. Of course, they are being provided, and many of even private schools, they are providing meals. We are giving meals where the lunch facility is there. And regular health checkups. Many schools, they are going for dental checkups. They are going for a biannual checkup by the physicians also. Health cards should be issued. The way we celebrate, many days are there regarding awareness and regarding how to keep themselves hygienic and how to maintain their health, have to be issued for the same. And especially looking into the present scenario, checkups have to be there. Even many of the schools, they have tied up with the local health services where they are getting the vaccination facility for their teaching staff, even when it is locked down in many parts of the country, especially regarding schools. And management is taking an initiative to get vaccination for the teachers. Of course, it has to be flowed down to students, regular checkup. They should be well educated first about how to maintain their own body. Their mental health has to be maintained. The teachers' interaction should be such that they should rather educate, and certain activities, certain camps have to be a regular part of a school's academic calendar so that it can be upkept. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Varinder ma'am. So with this, we come to the end of this very, very special 159 session now. But before we end the session, I would request our key speakers if we can have your concluding remark. And, we have also established one very interesting practice that while sharing your concluding remark, if you can also suggest, one idea that you would like to implement if you get a chance to become Minister of Education of our country. So what would be your priority that you would like to implement as a Minister of Education? I would request Varinder ma'am, if I may request you for your concluding remarks, and what would be that idea that you would like to implement as Minister of Education? Varinder ji.
I would like to make the education in such a manner that it can reach at every nook and corner of the country. Let's not the degrees be the actual parameter of it. Many a times, even the open and the non-formal way of teaching or spreading education is more effective, where our grannies are educating us on many things. Even watching our environment, we learn a lot. The students, many a times, they don't get good grades in science, although they are good watchers at Discovery and Animal Planet. So there has to be some very practical criteria to evaluate them and to certify whether somebody is actually learned. And another step, I would rather step a little beyond education policy or education department. Actually, the jobs have to be created for them so that everybody views this education system with the respect. Otherwise, it is not going to make much impact here. So
Absolutely.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely. We all agree with you, ma'am. That's very, very important and much needed effort, which is needed at that level. Big thanks for your participation and sharing your valuable thoughts. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now I would request Rachna ji, ma'am, if you can have your concluding remark, and what would be your priority if you get a chance to become Minister of Education?
See, NEP is a very vibrant, very ambitious document. And if you look at each and every word, you will find that this is for the holistic development of the children. But what is lagging, or what is lacking rather, in our country is sufficient number of schools for children to study. In fact, parents come to us and it is very painful to disappoint them, saying that they have no vacancy in our school for their child. So more and more schools are to be opened, number one. And second thing is, we have to empower and train our teachers in the right perspective. We have different categories of teachers. There are 2 teachers who are not fit for this job, who came to this only because they needed a job. There is another category of teachers who are highly motivated and they are very good teachers, but they are not getting opportunities and they are not being paid well. So the teacher education is the most important thing. We have to, nurture a generation which will be inclined towards teaching with great respect, not because they are not getting any job, so let's go to a school and find out a job. This has to be eliminated, and teacher education has to go in a very scientific manner So after the completion of their courses, necessary BA and all these, when they come to the schools, they are fully equipped. So more schools and highly motivated, empowered and trained teachers. This is what we need, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachna ma'am, for your valuable thoughts and your participation. Big thanks. And now I would request Surbhi ma'am, ma'am, if we can have your concluding remark, and what would be your priority when it comes to become Minister of Education?
Thanks for inviting me as a speaker, and it was a good learning throughout. And I really thank all the co-panelists here who could, put forward their wonderful thoughts, and it was a great learning. So I would say that, as ma'am said, that teacher training is a very important aspect. Now, that's absolutely important. But what I feel is, if you compare the private sector and the public sector, like the government school and the government teachers, and if you compare the private teachers, you can find that the private schools or the private teachers definitely are, technologically they are advanced. They are following all the norms of teacher training programs. On-job trainings are definitely integral part of their careers. And more importantly, yes, training is an important part of the teachers, but more than training, I feel that it is how you measure the performance. So what is happening in most of the government schools is, whether you perform, whether you don't perform, whether you attend, you don't attend, the pay packet doesn't change. The pay packet remains the same. Now, I think we penalize the private sector in terms of extremely high aligned performance to the pay packets. And that's what is a paradigm shift. I feel that the government also should think about empowering the school principals, the leaders, taking into account, the private and the public sectors, talking more to the principals of the private sector to understand. Now, RT is just being implemented in the private schools. Are we really getting the benefits of the RT? Are we really getting the kind of financial support from the government? So those are all question marks which definitely go in hand with the implementation of NEP. And I feel that the government should collaborate more with the private sector, so as one is to train the teachers appropriately to make this a success, and second, to align and integrate the performance with the package. The same thing what happens in the corporates. I think that's going to bring about the radical change that we are looking forward to. And the third most important is keeping the stakeholders, be it the vendors, be it the students, be it the parents, or be it our own teachers. We should definitely try and keep them happy and satisfied. And that sense of self-motivation will come only through that. I think that's all what I would like to say. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I believe we all agree with you, Surbhi ma'am, and that's a true state of affairs. Big thanks, Surbhi ma'am, for sharing these valuable points and for your participation. Once again, big thanks to all the key speakers, Rachna ma'am, Surbhi ma'am, Barinder ma'am, Dr. Kishore Raja. And I also thank to other participants for joining and being with us for the entire session. Manjeet Johar ma'am, a special thank to you for joining us today. Big thanks. We'll end the session here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. It was really a very
Thank you all of you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. That was a wonderful session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manjeet ma'am. Welcome.
It was a very informative session. Thank you.
Thank you.